Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RFP Success Show with me, your host, Lisa Rehurek, the #1 sought-after authority on RFP success. So each week we bring you information, strategies, and resources to help you win more business through RFPs and have a little bit of fun while doing it. So let's go ahead and get this week's episode started. I am introducing you to Marsha Lindquist. I pronounced it wrong when I asked her, and I did it again. Marsha Lindquist with Granite Leadership Strategy. She's the president and founder, and she's here to talk to us today about pricing, among some other things, but how important that cost proposal is and what we're doing around pricing. So Marsha, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so why don't we just kick it off by you telling us a little bit about your background and what it is that you do, kind of at a high level.
Okay. At a top level, we work with mostly federal government contractors, but they do some state and local work as well. And our work is focused on what I call the business side of the house, the pricing strategy, pricing, the contracts and subcontracts, the federal compliance, and not to be left last, but the cost accounting, those pesky, how do I get my indirect rates in order kind of question.
Really
And
important, right? Because I would think that people forget about that piece, or they don't really pay enough attention to it until it's a little too late and they're messed up.
yeah, absolutely. Or they call at the last minute, Lisa, and say, oh my God, help me. We've got something that's due in less than 2 weeks and we need your help to get this in order. And
Yeah.
that would be the hard part, yes.
So why do people do that? Like, why do they wait till the last minute on that versus bringing you in up front? Is that just because they don't know that you can help them, or how you can help them, or what's the deal there?
I think part of the problem is they think that pricing is just something you throw over the transom. They think it's, just the numbers. We put it together, we slap the numbers together, and there it is. There's nothing creative about it, and that's far from the truth. The most creative part about actually doing the pricing is the pricing strategy, and that takes a little bit more lead time than just a couple of weeks or when the RFP shows up. A lot of times they don't know what they don't know, Lisa, and they don't know that there's a lot of creativity that can go into crafting what could be really a winning price for them.
I love that you just said that. And listeners, this is why I wanted to have Marsha on the show, is because I hear all the time, well, they just go with low price, or, price is all that matters, low bidder, yada, yada, yada. And first of all, we really know that the answer to that is no. Marsha's going to go deeper into that. But what I love about what you're talking about here, Marsha, is that you're telling us that there's strategy behind this and there's creativity behind this. And this is why I wanted to have you on the show, because I want to talk about that. So let's first tackle that question of low bidder always wins. It's just about low cost. What do you think about that?
Well, sometimes it is going to be about low cost. Yeah, you have to read the RFP and try and decipher. If they say it's about low cost, it is, okay? Yeah. And if you're not prepared to really sharpen your pencil and grind it down to the lowest price, then you probably shouldn't be bidding it,
Exactly.
But if you read the RFP and they're talking about best value, then it's probably not a low price bid, okay? And no matter what, there's still a lot of creativity that goes into creating, whether it be a low price or a best value bid. In either case, it's not just the numbers that we have are the numbers that we have, and there's not much we can do about it. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of what I call tools in the toolbox, Lisa. It's not just about low price. There's also, let me give you the other part about this. There's also the part about showing and demonstrating and really conveying that you've got a good business value to offer your customer.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. Like, what does value look like in the context of pricing that is different from the cost itself?
Okay, the cost itself, when you're done, at the end of the day, when you're done using the tools in the toolbox to get to the right number that you're aiming for, and you should know what you are aiming for, that's one part of it. The second part of it, and they're my two fingers. The second part of it is conveying the business value and the value proposition that you've got, and actually placing a value on the additional things that you may have to offer your customer. Hopefully, you've done your homework and you know what your customer values so that you know how you can respond with, here is our price, it's X, and now we're going to be able to offer you an additional 5 things, and here is the value of those 5 things, and that's why we want to tell you that it could be why. You would propose what they're asking for, certainly, but you would convey to them in the executive summary, that's the third point I want to bring out, in the executive summary of the business volume, the value that you bring and the dollars associated with that. You don't put that into your pricing unless the government is asking for it, but more importantly, you tell them the other value things that you have to offer that they consider to be valuable, not you, that help solve their problem, make it faster, make it cheaper, make it easier for them to do business. And you convey that in your business volume executive summary. Third point I wanted to make, Lisa.
So, oh my gosh, so many key nuggets in there, you guys, for you to hold on to. Number one is bottom line cost isn't just about the number, it is about the value and
Right.
things like you said, efficiencies. This is going to take less time, or we're going to bring more to the table.
Right.
You've got to know that stuff going in. And that's why I think you said at the beginning of the call, I think why you said bring me in sooner, because that's part of the
Yeah.
strategy is fleshing all of that out, and you help with that, right?
Well, I not only help with that, but I work with the technical team. Oh my God, a business person that's working with a technical team to really find out what they're saying so that we can not only, I don't mean mirror it in the business proposal, but actually address that and find the ways to put a dollar value on the value of those things that you are trying to give the customer that they really need and want, okay? And it may be something that you know about this customer that's not in the RFP. I don't mean that you're not responsive to the RFP, but you have an opportunity in the executive summary of the cost volume to convey that value, okay? You
Yes.
can't do that when you call when the RFP hits the street. You can only do that when you know that it's coming. You've done some homework. I'm working with the technical team to craft that message in that executive summary for the cost volume.
Yes, and I love too that you're talking about doing that so far in advance. Like, do not wait, people, for that to hit the streets. You got to be strategizing about this, which, by the way, means you've got to know who your targets are, and you've got to engage people like Marsha ahead of time to start having some of those conversations, so that she can. I think, Marsha, you can also help them figure out what they need to go find out, right? If they know a proposal is going to hit the streets, you're going to help them know what questions they need to answer before it hits the
Yes,
streets.
yes, and I don't mean to cut you off. I get so excited about this stuff
No, I love it.
because because what has to happen is you have to know the customer. You
Yeah.
can't just respond to an RFP. Oh, here's the requirement. We think we can fill it. Oh my God, you're not going to have a great hope or prayer of really winning that. You might, but the odds are against you. So if you
Yeah.
plan ahead, I can help them help clients with the various things that they need to find out from their customer so that they can do that homework way ahead of time, and that we have a chance of putting value on that, conveying that as a business value proposition, and put it in the executive summary of the business or cost volume.
So the second thing that I loved about everything that you're talking about, and I'm going to circle back to that executive summary here in a second, but the second thing you talked about
Sure.
that I really was honing in on is the fact that it's got to be the value from the perspective of the client. Like, people, I
Right.
review hundreds of RFPs every year, and nobody gets this right. Everybody focuses on what you think the value is. And so I get
Right.
it, that's just I think, human nature, but you've got to flip that around and say, what does my client value? And if you speak to that, then
Mm-hmm.
you're ahead of your competition already, but you've got to know what that is, to Marsha's point. And how many people would you say do that regularly? Do you see
Oh
people?
my God, it can't be more than about 10%.
I agree.
I, I wish I could say it's bigger. I really do.
Yeah.
But if you don't find out where their pain is, I mean, they may put all the requirements in the RFP. We get that. But what may not be in the RFP is the very pain point that says, we really want to be able to, add additional features here that we've never been able to do before. And in a discussion with them, in an interview or several interviews with them, you find that out. Okay, that's the added value that you can put a dollar value on. You don't price it into your response, but you do put it as a value. If we could do this, we could cut your efficiency. We could make you more efficient by cutting your response time, by adding these 3 features that we know that you've been trying to do for 6 years and haven't been able to do it. And here is the dollar value associated with that. Okay.
Yeah.
Or here are the
Beautiful.
savings, and we could reduce this bid by, let's call it 10%, 20%, whatever it happens to be, by imparting those efficiencies. That
Yeah,
makes
but
sense?
it totally makes sense. But if you go in and you say, oh, they want it to be lower cost, so we're going to cut the cost, when they're saying, hey, we've got the budget, we don't need to go below this, but we could use some
Right.
other value somewhere else, then you're just, cutting off your foot, just, whatever that saying is, cutting off your nose to spite your
No,
face,
spite
right?
your face, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you need to be able to pitch to this customer those things that you have learned
Yes.
by interviewing them and spending time with them. Imagine that. It may not be what is answered in your proposal, but you know that it's a pain point. Every time you say, I know what this customer wants, and you start to put it into your proposal, if it's not being responsive to the requirement, then no, it doesn't belong in there, but you can put it in an executive summary. See, the cost volume, here's the point. I didn't mean to get so excited.
No,
The
I love it.
cost volume is the place where you get to do these things, because typically it's not page limited. If it's page
Mm,
limited, well, then you gotta take that into consideration. But if it's not page limited, this is the place where you can add that business value proposition and put some real meat into it. Put the dollar value of that in there for them, whether it's a cost savings or additional cost for these additional features. Give it to them in that executive summary. It's not the executive summary that you write for the technical, but rather for the business side of the house. Make sense?
yeah, and that's what I was going to clarify there. So, because here's what I see too is that even if you talk to some of that in the technical response executive summary, when they get to the cost proposal, number one, sometimes it's different people looking at that. And number
Right,
two, they're now in the frame of mind of the cost and the value and that piece. So you've got to add it, if very least add it to both, but you need to have it in that
right,
side. So just for the listeners, when we're talking about the cost volume or the business volume is where you're giving your pricing, right? So sometimes it's called a cost proposal, a pricing proposal, a business volume versus
right.
the technical proposal, which is the meat of your proposal. This is where that piece sits. So I love, Marsha, that you suggest doing an executive summary for that. Are there any pitfalls to doing an executive summary for the cost volume?
Well, I think the only pitfall is it's typically if the RFP says you can't do it,
Right.
okay,
Listen to the
or
RFP.
listen to the RFP first and foremost. The second part is if you've got resistance within your own organization to putting an executive summary into the cost volume. Sometimes that's a mental set that if it's new to one of my clients, they're going to have a hard time accepting it and embracing it because they're like, wait a minute, we've never done that before. Even some people say, well, if we do that, we're being non-responsive. Well, you're still being responsive, okay?
Right.
You're just doing something that maybe your competition isn't doing.
Yeah.
Some people call it an introduction. I like to call it an executive summary because I, I want it to be the couple of pages that if somebody doesn't read anything else, they read that and that at least, okay?
Yep.
The pitfalls of doing it, It's mostly in your own organization. It's getting
Wow.
over yourself, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Which
Okay?
is a theme throughout on my side, when I deal a lot more with the technical side, same thing, getting over yourself, yep,
Right.
love that.
Right.
And
I
so,
mean, let me just ask you a
yeah,
question. Are you saying is there a pitfall for the receiver? Is the
yeah, I mean,
receiver going to see it
just
as a pitfall? That kind of thing. You know
yeah,
what
I
I
mean, I
mean?
think just because I know some of the listeners will be resistant if they've not done it before. So, what's
Yes.
the downside to doing one? I personally don't think there is one unless, like you said, the requirement of the RFP is that you can only submit this. It's like, here's an Excel spreadsheet and you can't do anything around that. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, pay attention to the RFP, but I don't think that there's any downside to doing one. So that's why I asked the question.
The
Yeah.
downside, I'll tell you, there's one downside is if you write a poor one, okay?
Oh, no.
If it's just lip service, if it's one of these that says, hi, we're being responsive to your RFP number XYZ, that's dry, that's a cover letter, that's not an executive summary, okay? That's the pitfall, is if you write it as if it is a cover letter rather than an executive summary.
Or if you make it
That
all about you.
Oh my God, it's got to be totally about what your customer is looking for to achieve and how you're going to achieve it.
And how long would you say that executive summary should be? Like average length?
I like an average length of about a page and a half to 2 pages. Sometimes it's
Nice.
1 page, Lisa.
Okay.
Um, The longest one I've had is about 4 pages, and that was a very large program. It was $1.75 billion program,
Okay.
so there was a lot we wanted to say in it. I've had another one that went about 4 pages, and it went 4 pages, unfortunately, because the owner of the company thought that we needed to convey more technical stuff in it, and so
Oh,
there was that resistance. So that's yes, you got to strike a happy balance between some of the technical descriptions, but you got to put dollars with it. You got to put value in it. You got to put business to it.
yeah.
Um, so that's kind of my recommendation. Page and a half, 2 pages is what I like.
Perfect. I love that. All right, you guys, we've got some really great golden nuggets here from Miss Marsha, but we've got more. So let's see. I also want to ask you, because when you and I spoke yesterday, one of the terminologies that you kept saying, one of the phrases that you kept saying is that you like to make it really sing. And I loved that because these proposals can be really dry. They're dry for us to write, and they're certainly dry for the readers to read. So tell us what you mean by that.
I was hoping you'd ask me that question because it's one of my very, very important hot button messages. And that is you've got to really make it sing, because most business proposals that you see out there are large, they're voluminous, they're heavyweight. They have a huge plop factor when you drop them from about 10 feet up, right? I refer to it as sawdust, okay? It's sawdust because it's endless, endless tables and charts, okay,
Yeah.
of data, right? And it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes they ask you for some description, some write up, that kind of thing. But when you do the write up, when you do the description, you really ought to, what I call, make it sing. How do you make it sing? Well, you make it sing by making what you say in the words really mean something. In other words, it's not just descriptive. It's not just 2 or 3 sentences that describe something, but describe to the evaluator why you're doing it and how you did it. Okay, give it a story, give
Yeah,
it some
story.
background, give it some meat.
Yep.
Okay, um, and the other part about it is that I like to, God forbid, put visuals into the cost volume. And I'm not just talking about tables that have charts associated with them, although that's better than nothing. Okay. Color graphics are great that convey something in a visual manner that allow the evaluator to get the message quicker, because there are a lot of
Nice.
people, I'm one of them, that get something visually before I read something. I don't like to read endless text. Who does?
Yeah, right?
Um, and the other thing that I like to put in the executive summary is a lot of graphics, pictures, something that helps convey your message a little bit easier, with captions, with call out boxes,
Yeah.
things that you do in the technical volume make the business volume sing. Now, how do you do that? You got to plan. You can't respond to something like this just a week or two, or even when the RFP shows up, Lisa.
Yep. I am so with you on that. Now, if we could just get everybody to listen to us, right, Marsha?
That would be so great.
That
Yeah.
would be so great. So one of the things too that we talked about when we chatted yesterday was that, sometimes people look at you and think that you're just a pricer, right? Like you come in and price, and I know you guys can't see her face right now, but the look on her face was just priceless, because she is not a pricer. That is not what she does. I mean, it is part of what she does, but so tell us kind of in a bigger picture what else you do, because obviously we've been talking about a whole lot of it, right? It's the strategy
Right.
that takes you far beyond just being a pricer, but there's other components to that you mentioned a little bit at the beginning of the call, the cost accounting and all of that. Can you talk a little bit more to those things?
I can. When people say I need a pricer, it's kind of like saying I need a mechanic. For my car. Okay, yeah, you need a mechanic, but don't you need somebody who can solve a problem? And that's why I consider myself to be a strategic pricing person. I'm worried about the strategy, probably sometimes more than my clients are. First and
Yes.
foremost, anyone could put the numbers together. You're right. You can almost get a monkey to put the numbers together for you. Okay, put the endless tables and schedules together for you. But you need someone who can think, who can be creative, and who can tap into that cost accounting part of it, that will allow you to be creative. Okay, number one. The second part about it is I consider myself to be a triple, how could I say this, a triple threat, because it's not only the pricing and pricing strategy and the cost accounting parts of it that need help, but it's the contracts part of it. This is where we really get creative with our subcontractors, for example, or we get really
Oh, nice.
potentially really, how could I say, a little bit bushy-tailed about what we can offer as a term or condition to the customer, to the federal government, that is a benefit to them. Oh my God. So I consider myself to be beyond a pricer because I'm going to look at many different facets of the business. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, just in chatting with you, for sure, you're a strategist. Like, I mean, no doubt about it, because you're thinking about it from that big picture. You're thinking about the forest, not just the trees, right? So think
Right.
about the
Right.
forest first and then all of those pieces of the puzzle. So you focus on the cost proposal, the business volume, whatever we want to call it. How do you
Right.
tie that back in to make sure that there's a nice connection, particularly with the executive summary? How do you do that so that it doesn't sound like one person has worked on the strategy for the cost volume and another person has worked on the strategy for the technical response?
Well, part of what I like to do is I like to work hand in hand with our proposal manager, okay,
Okay.
and our technical volume lead. Um, Strange as this may seem, I actually read the technical volume, and I'm part of that
Love it.
pink and red team review.
Yeah.
Imagine that. When I tell people I read the technical volume, they're like, but you don't have to do that. And you're right, I don't. But otherwise, I'm not going to be in sync with them. We're not going to be hand in glove, okay?
Yeah.
So I think it's important for not only me to understand what's in the technical volume, but I try and get my proposal manager, whoever that is, to be involved at least at some really maybe not detailed level in the business volume as well, Lisa.
Okay. Okay. I love that. I mean, it is a partnership. You've got to have that, no doubt.
Right,
Right.
right,
So
right.
I always love to ask this question. What do you see as the number one biggest mistake people make when they're pricing their proposals?
Wow, there's so much, Lisa. I think the biggest mistake I see is that they waste time at the beginning or before the RFP hits the street,
Yeah.
not calling me in, because that's the clock is ticking. We can't get strategy going. We can't do anything creative or very little creative at that point, or proactive with our subcontractors or teammates or what have you. I think that's the biggest mistake they make. Okay,
I would,
is not
yeah.
getting set up ahead of time. It actually, by the way, let me say this. This is really
Yeah.
important. It actually saves money to do that rather than calling me in at the last minute, because then we're scrambling. We're spending more time spinning wheels unnecessarily during the RFP process towards the end, and we're scrambling, and that's not a good situation for us to be in.
No, and I
Okay.
find, and you can tell me if you agree with this, but I find when we're under pressure, when we're kind of in that freak out mode of like this proposal's on the streets and now we have we've got a tight deadline, our creativity is stunted in that moment. We can't think
Yeah.
strategically.
No, you can't. And you don't have the time to strategically plan and
Yeah.
act and react. Okay, you're just in a push the button mode, and it's not the easy button, by the way. It's the
Right.
red button. That's really, oh my God, I'm in crisis. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So much good stuff, you guys. I mean, make sure that I think this is one of those podcasts you want to listen to again. You want to read the show notes because there's a lot of really good golden nuggets in here. So, Marsha, how can people learn more about you, get in touch with you if they want to bring you in? And before you answer that, let me just say she does focus a lot on federal, but I know I've got a lot of listeners that are in the state and local space. She does all of it. So
Right.
she's definitely a great resource for you. How can they get in touch with you?
Okay, the best way is to send me an email or go to my website. Let's just go there, because you can get in touch with me from that if you can't remember all of this. Our website is graniteleadershipstrategies.com. And it's got to be strategies, plural, not strategy. We have many
Perfect.
strategies.
Nice.
That's the best way. People can reach me by email, by going to the website. Check out what's there. There's a lot of resources there, articles, quick tips, all kinds of stuff. Or they can call me. I mean, 480-513-1132 is another quick way. But people usually email me and say, Marsha, I've got a question. Can I get a free 30-minute consultation? You bet. I do that.
Wonderful. And she does, she has a ton of articles and information on her website. Very good source for information. But again, if you've got some RFPs coming up and you really want to strategize, give her a call and make note of all these golden nuggets we've given you here today. Marsha, thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Thank
All
you very,
right.
very much. Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right, everybody. Well, you've been listening to the RFP Success Show. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please make sure you do so you don't miss an episode. And of course, we always appreciate it when you give us reviews. So thanks for spending time with us today, and we'll see you next week.